Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Taskmaster RHAP. Yes, we are back for another special edition of the Taskmaster RHAP. Wow, that is hard to say. That is like shockingly hard to say. For Series 17, Series 17 just finished, so I am here with best buddy Grace to talk about Series 17.
I'm
Grace,
here.
how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Another season of Taskmaster, and maybe one that wasn't the strongest or the best season. Maybe not top tier, but this is what we always say. It's like pizza. I guess there is some bad pizza. That's a hot take I think I have. There's some bad pizza, but any Taskmaster is good Taskmaster, I think. So
yeah, I would say I think I enjoyed this season better than last season in that I felt myself graded on during season 16, where season 17 always felt like a warm blanket. But I wasn't like dying to watch every episode. Like, even you were like, hey, can you record like this weekend? I was like, I have 2 episodes to catch up on. Like, it wasn't appointment viewing like it has been in the past, but I very much enjoyed it. I had a good time. I loved this cast. I love the chemistry between the 5 of them. But it just wasn't quite as gripping as, say, a season 16 was.
Yeah, I think that I think in all this whole season, I love the cast, but I kind of love them all individually rather as in like, oh, the Series 17 cast. I've been rewatching Taskmaster. I am very slow, so I'm only up to season 4, but the jump from like 3 to 4 is so stark when you get to season 4 and you're like, oh my god, this lovely group of humans, which is like Noel and Mel and Joe and Paul, and then somebody else who's there, which I feel bad.
Lolly and Hugh.
Great as well. Oh, it's Ed Hugh, right? Paul's from season 3, who I do also love. But it's such a delightful ensemble in a way that this is like close to that, but not quite that.
Yeah.
I guess I would say. Also, my favorite thing that I remembered today was recently, and this is not a well, I'm gonna make it a plug for the Rob's website store, the RHAP store, because you can currently buy a buff for Pride Month, and all the proceeds will go to Point of Pride, which is a charity. But a few months ago, I was like, oh, I should get some new RHAP merch, and I bought a shirt, and I was wearing it today, and didn't realize how fitting it was for today's podcast. Which I'm wearing the "Ranking is Arbitrary and Reductive" shirt, which is hilarious to then be doing a Taskmaster.
About. And this is a side note that's relevant to your story, but irrelevant to the show, and that's I also got some RHAP merch recently,
look at that.
and
We're just in sync.
The patron exclusive Eris Rob Eris tour t-shirt.
It is really good. It is really, really good.
I was like, oh, perfect intersection of my my hobbies.
Yeah, it's very good. But yeah, I'm wearing my ranking is arbitrary and reductive shirt for a show that's literally about ranking how people did in tasks.
And the tasks are often arbitrary.
100%.
Remind me, going into this season, who are you familiar with and who weren't you familiar with?
Basically, Nick and Steve, I think, were the only people I had really known. I feel like I'm pretty behind. I have not done a lot of British panel showing in the last years. I pretty much just watched like Big Fat Quiz, and then I just watched like the episodes of Would I Lie to You that what's his face is from an early season of Taskmaster. You know who I'm talking about, Bob Mortimer.
Oh yeah.
I just watch his lies on What I Lie to You. I'm watching a lot of The Rest is Entertainment with Richard Osman, which is a fantastic podcast.
Oh, but you know what? I listened to a couple episodes because a friend of mine really likes the podcast, and she will tell me like, oh, they're talking about this, that like I like the Thursday Murder Club when he was talking about
casting.
I mean, movie, like, and I'm very excited about that.
He also gives some really fun, like behind the scenes Taskmaster stuff and some game show stuff. Anyway, I feel like I'm really behind on British panel shows and like the British comedy scene in general. So I feel like it's a double whammy of like, there's always at least 1 or 2 people I don't know. But now I'm like, even like the people who I probably should know, I don't even really know. So I think from this season, I really only knew Nick and Steve for the most part. And the other 3 were a surprise to me. Who did you know from this season?
Here's my slight hot take, and that is that I'm kind of over stand-up comedy.
Whoa.
You know, it's just like I'm just like, okay, we're all laughing, it's great, whatever. I don't know. It's more like
channel show stuff that I normally know these people from, right? Of
Yeah,
like, they'll appear on What I Lie to You or 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown or whatever, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, that person's funny.
yeah.
But
Yeah, so I knew Joanne, she's been on Big Fat Quiz, she's been on a few other things.
she's been on Big Fat Quiz. I should absolutely know her then. I just
Yeah,
totally
yeah,
forgot her.
that's why I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it was just like a one-off, and I can't remember. I think I think she might have been on the Big Fat Quiz of Sport? I can't quite remember. I think she
Oh,
was
I
on
don't
a
know if I
weird
did
one.
those ones, so that's fair.
And then I knew Nick Mohammed, not from Ted Lasso, but he did an episode of Off Menu that I really enjoyed, and he was on Catherine Ryan's Backstage show that's on Amazon Prime, which if you haven't watched it, it is really good. He does a really excellent. I know it's funny. I just said like, oh, I don't really like stand-up comedy, but that show I did very much enjoy.
Mm,
He did a really cool like magic show basically, and Steve Pemberton's been around, and then
yeah.
going back, it's like I have seen John Robbins in things, but he, with so much love in my heart, didn't stick in my brain.
Yeah, that's why I'm, like, surprised if I've watched Joanne McNally before and then, like, forgot her because I feel like she
Yeah.
does stick in your brain, but
Yeah, and you know what? I saw her on House of Games too, and I remembered her from that. And then
that's the other thing
actually,
I feel like I need if I put that more in my rotation, I feel like
yes.
I would catch people who are gonna be on the
Yeah,
show.
because we're watching an old series right now from like probably like 4 years ago or even 5 years ago because the chairs are still closed in House of Games. So it was definitely pre-COVID that
Mm,
John Robbins was on. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like I remember this now. He just didn't
right.
stick out at that point. Who coming out of it? Who are you loving? Who's your new fave?
Okay, well, I still loved Nick Mohammed. I thought Nick Mohammed was an adorable little cutie pie, cutie patootie, who was just lovely, and I love how bad he was, but how delighted he was. It was a really phenomenal, like, juxtaposition of the last episode in the task where they have to find their friend, hug their friend, where he's and he's like, "I think I did pretty well." He did terribly. So
I love it so much. Yeah.
yeah, I really liked Nick Mohammed. I thought for me, Sophie was probably the standout of the season. I think in terms of like how much I knew about her versus how much I love her by the end of the show, Joanne would be next. Joanne would like certainly be right up there, but Sophie is just such an anomaly that I feel like she's such a little weirdo and I love her. And they're often my favorite like archetype on the show is kind of this type of like very funny. She's very funny, and sometimes you can tell she's joking, and sometimes I don't know. And I think that's just legit her, and she's confused and dumbfounded by what's happening. And it was lovely. Then Joanne, John is like this classic like loves. He's very much in the like it gamble of like clearly loves the
Yeah, he's
show.
like the guy I would make out with definitely, but like he's never gonna be my favorite in the season.
Yeah, like he's attractive. So like he loves Queen, loves Freddie Mercury. He's very good at the task. He definitely wanted to win very badly. Good for him. Great. This is delightful. And then Steve, I thought was like incredibly clever, and well run and surprised me. And I thought Steve would actually do better at the
Me
show than
too.
he
I
ended up
thought
doing.
he was gonna win, honestly.
Yeah, there was like a bit of a run away at the beginning between John with Steve kind of trailing behind. And I thought Steve was showing enough promise. I thought he really could have like earned some 5 pointers from Greg that didn't ultimately end up really happening. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it was almost like I felt like Steve really almost tried too hard a lot of the times where Greg doesn't always love a try hard. Like it either really worked for him or it really didn't work for him.
it's funny because I think that there's the best example of tryharding this season is when Steve Pemberton, for a prize task, which is I'll have to see if I can find what the actual thing was, but when he does the crossword puzzle, he makes
Mhm.
his um the best thing you can get into. And he tells him to get into crosswords because he's put, please give me 5 points, Greg, or whatever, in the crossword. And that's super tryhard, I think. But I think the fact that it's like outside of the show, I think it's like you did all the work. We didn't actually have to watch you like make it. I think if like Greg saw Steve making the cryptic crossword and doing it, I think he scores it lower than like, oh, how that seems like a lot of work, but I didn't actually have to watch it. So I shall give you 5 points for that prize task.
And honestly, I don't know if you're a Reddit girly, but that that prize task was kind of like dropped on Reddit like
Yes.
many months ago saying like, "Hey, I think this is a clue to the task like a Taskmaster thing." And that was honestly kind of when Steve's casting got leaked because for because I think it's at Steve, and it's just like the way that things were connecting. The Taskmaster fans put a lot of puzzles together, of which I cannot wrap
Didn't
my head around.
didn't Nick also accidentally spoil that he was on the season? I
I
believe
think
that happened.
so.
Um,
Yeah.
but also that did happen. That people were like, "Hey, I think Steve Pemberton might be on Taskmaster." But I believe there's also other people who do the cryptic crossword who were extremely confused that
Yeah. Yeah.
who had
That's
no frame
fair
of
enough.
reference for
Fair enough.
Taskmaster and be like, "What does this mean?" Yeah, which is very funny.
I also need to give you a fact, and that is that Sophie is the youngest person on this season.
What? No way. No way.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. I
Wow.
know, and I feel bad for being so shocked at that, but yeah.
Well, they're all older
She
than me, so that's
she is 37, 36 or 37,
36, I think. Yeah. And
36, yeah, based on my math. Yeah.
Joanna's 40.
I know, she looks great for 40.
Wow. Wow.
Like, girl,
Wow,
who does your
that's
Botox? As can I call them?
and I don't even think like every once in a while when they would be like when they like in the team task, like they kind of put like what I would call the older people, and then they like I wasn't like, oh, Sophie should be with you. Like I was not thinking that. I don't think Sophie looks like
No.
old. I mean, she's in her mid 30s, you know. I think sometimes I think I'm old and I'm gonna be 33, you know, but I'm not that old. But Sophie's not that old either. But yeah, it does surprise me that she's the youngest person on the cast. I would have said
know.
Joanne, I think, or John.
Yeah. One of my favorite through lines.
I thought it was Steve.
I know. One of the favorite through lines through the season was like Greg being like, "Well, Steve, you're old." And he's like, "I'm not that old. Like, I'm not."
Yeah,
that
there's a
old.
whole episode where it's like all about how he's gonna die soon. Yeah. So you asked me who sort of like who I love after the show. What about you?
I think I just love Nick more now. Like,
Yeah.
I liked him before, but now I really like him. I was a little concerned going into the season that because he's so known for his character work that we wouldn't really get who Nick Muhammad is, and especially since he was in the vampire costume. But I think Taskmaster does such an excellent job of really like tearing away any masks. Like this is who you are, and
Or
that you just have to.
reflections.
Yeah. That was so excellent. Another great through line was that if you happen to not notice and not be on Reddit, that the Taskmaster editors edit out Nick's reflection in every puddle or mirror or anything because he was dressed as a vampire.
They must have been so annoyed when they did a mirror task, huh? They must have been like, "Oh man, we can't really edit them out of the mirror."
Yeah, we just have to like do some angles here.
Yeah.
So I was really glad to see more like Nick as Nick, and I really enjoyed him.
I think the thing about Nick too is that yes, I agree, and I was actually quite worried that he was actually going to be like pretty in character for his looking at what his costume is, because I feel like we've gone so I feel like it's all been done in terms of the costuming. I actually saw a thing where Mae Martin was talking about how much they kind of regretted. They thought that they would look kind of cool and laid back. I believe they're just wearing a white t-shirt and jeans, if I'm not mistaken.
Cool.
I do agree that they look cool, but they kind of regret that they didn't go a little bit more for something. But it's funny because I feel like what else is there to be done at the, like I'm sure someone will at some point like come up with another thing, but I feel like Nick's was such a bold choice to be in the Dracula costume the whole time, which is quite amazing. But the other thing about Nick's thing is that he got a lot of real life hate from his portrayal in season 2 of Ted Lasso. If you haven't watched that show, he takes quite like a stark turn. He was very hated, and like people do this thing where they don't realize it's a TV show, and then we're like extremely mean to Nick. I feel like this was so helpful. Yeah, I feel like this was so helpful for his. I mean, the people who are doing that are idiots anyway. But like,
how do you mean to Nick though?
Yeah, but I think I don't know that I knew he was this sweet, you know,
right,
just honestly. Like, I think like I thought he probably was like a nice, because I think the whole Ted Lasso cast for the most part, although there's some stuff about Jason Sudeikis, but nevertheless, they all seem pretty lovely. Like even like, you know, Roy Kent and Hannah Waddingham. I like that I just used a character and then a Brick Goldstein. They all seem lovely. And so I assume Nick was lovely, but I think he was quite like this lovely, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen Ted Lasso, so I'm not marred by the opinions of that.
People also
Luckily for
just
me.
suck and should understand that it's a
So weird.
television
Like
show,
people
you know?
need hobbies, and it's not tweeting strangers on the internet.
Agreed.
Unless it's nice things, unless you got a compliment, then you can follow me on Twitter at @estrong_.
Mm-hmm.
What are some prize tasks that stood out to you this season? Like we've had this conversation over the last couple of years of where Alex is really trying on some of these. Like, you know, I would love to go see them do a few more classic, you know, simpler ones, but anything that stuck out to you prize task wise?
I thought the first one was terrible. Do you remember what it
So
was?
weird.
Most glorious thing that sounds a bit like Greg Davies if you mumble it. It just I feel like was such a bad first one.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm not having to make up like how many of these have they done? How many episodes? If there's been over 100, right? At this point,
I'm
like
math. I
I
can't
remember
do
they did the 100th episode extravaganza one, where like in the episode they called out there was a 100th episode plus all the international versions. So I give them credit that like this is tough to come up with this many like prize task things. I'm trying to think of some of the like things people brought in. I mean, I did really think the cryptic crossword was quite good. I really liked that. Yeah, there's some weird things. The thing of yours Greg would most like to squeeze in his mighty hands was quite fun.
Yeah, but I don't love when people have an idea for an object and they just try and shoehorn it in whatever. Like it's like they're playing Yahtzee where they're like, "Well, we're at the end and I want to use this, but I already used my chance up."
Did Sophie Willen not literally bring in a chair from her dressing room at some point? Like it seemed like she literally did not bring in a prize task and then just had to find something
I
in the
think so.
dressing room.
John brought in like his coin collection, which I like don't care at all about. And I heard on I think it was the Taskmaster podcast that there's like a story behind it that he like tells on the radio all the time, but like I don't care, and that's not a good prize for that.
That really has old school, like you're actually gonna win this thing,
Yes.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like most extraordinary picture, that's like one of those like simple ones that's like, yeah, like surprised we haven't done that yet. Or there's another one. I think the greatest thing you could give to a granny is like pretty reasonable. I don't think like any of the prizes themselves. I feel like this was a bad prize season or gift season, I guess we could say.
Has there been I feel like the last like super memorable prize tasker, I think, is Mae Martin. And I don't say that just because I love Mae Martin, but I also love Mae Martin. But I feel like actually making physical puppets, like Mae seemed to think that you had to handmade make everything.
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
that got brought in, which had this like lovely sentiment to it. I just generally, I kind of love the season that I feel like Nick never quite, he kept like just fundamentally misunderstanding Greg. There's one I can't remember what things to get into. He brings in, the concept of having ice in your wine, which like I don't think that's Greg, baby.
I
Yeah.
also don't agree with it. Like, just put your wine in the freezer. It's fine. It'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. I learned, and then the other day, I think that iced wine is this a Canadian thing? Just generally iced wine.
I like ice wine is a specifically Canadian thing because a lot of other countries don't have the low temperatures. We do. Yeah, if you want to get into this, ice wine legally can only be considered ice wine if the grapes have been harvested after 3 nights of -8
Oh,
Celsius temperatures. So like you're not getting that in many other places in the world. I think Germany will sometimes have like an ice wine, but like Niagara
oh.
specifically because of where we're located, like the low temperatures we can get to, but like the mild other seasons, like Niagara region is the best place for ice
So
wine.
when I think of ice wine, I don't think I've ever had it. I'm just thinking about like a
Ice.
slushy. No, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
like a
yeah, a
froze.
slush. Yeah, but with wine instead of like the juice you get from a slushy. You know?
Sure, 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 sure,
Yeah.
sure. Rose,
The other very
rose, great.
The other very Canadian thing I think about, which is like has nothing to do with wine, but it's like, you know, when you go to a house party and you just put the beer on the back porch because it's so cold, and you just
I
like,
used to put my cans of Coke in the snow and
yeah, yeah,
have them cool down. It was great.
classic
But yeah,
Canadian.
this has been Wine Chat with Haley.
Perfect.
Anyway, team tasks. How did you feel about the teams this season? Would you have made any changes? I feel like we've been working on the format with the teams for a while.
I really like Nick and Steve, but I feel like John and Joanne on the same team was like the thing I would want to break up. So I don't know how you do. I guess do you put Joanne with the other two, and then John and Sophie is pretty funny, I guess. But generally, I think this was fine. But I do probably think John and Joanne probably being on different teams. But I feel like, have we ever had a male and female contestant who I feel like had the most kind of similar energy? I feel like, okay, are we getting? I don't know if either of them is in a relationship. But are we getting like anything from John and Joey? I feel like they just like they're sitting next to each other.
They don't give me kissing vibes.
Oh, interesting. They're just buddies.
Yeah.
They're just fun buds.
Yeah, I think that John takes this too seriously to be able to have kissing energy during the team challenge.
What if the task is you have to kiss Joanne McNally? Your time starts now.
Sign me up. Yeah, I think he would take that very seriously, but he would be like, you have to kiss one of your teammates, and he would look at both and be like, okay, all right.
I guess I just feel like, so I think, but I mean, I know that Steve ultimately comes in third, but I do feel like, so John and Joanne, I think on the same, I think you just split them up because I feel like there's too much like competence happen. I think they were the best. I mean, they're the best. And then they just had Sophie. And the task where Sophie has to say umbrella many times is a delight, and I want to rewatch it over and over again. But for the most part, I feel like she didn't like really disrupt them that much.
No.
Yeah, I think I would have just swapped Joanne on the other team. I wouldn't have done boys versus girls.
Hear me out.
Swap John. Yeah.
John and Nick.
John and Nick could be. And then Steve, Joanne, and Sophie. Joanne.
I feel like their energy is similar enough to carry it through, where I think John and Nick have such different energy that it would balance out. And like, because I felt often that John seemed to be mad at both Sophie and Joanne, where it'd be nice to only have him be mad at one person, and it be Nick, where you can't almost be mad at him because it's Nick.
Yeah. That darts challenge drove me nuts, where John just like kills it. I'm like, this is so boring, but whatever. Do you know what I actually want? And maybe it's the best, because if Sophie and Nick are never actually going to win the season, do you just have the most fun team of all time in Sophie and Nick, and then you put Steve, John, and Joanne on a team and just let them accumulate the points, but then it's totally even the whole time because they'll just accumulate the same number of points?
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, not that they would have known that before they did it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess not. But imagine Nick and Sophie were a team. Imagine the results we would have got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love the first team challenge of this season, which is to create the best single picture of an animal doing something surprising, and the 6 blinds would be combined. I hated that this was the intro task for them.
Yeah, this one was fine. Yeah, I like the result more than I liked what happened.
Yeah, I like the art tasks where they have to like kind of just trust in each other. I thought it was insane that their first introduction to their team was behind walls where they didn't really get to see each other. Like, I want those cute moments of them hugging or being excited, or like the awkward Ivo Graham, like Frankie Boyle not recognizing Ivo Graham, or just like weird stuff like that. And they were blocked by walls, and that's not chill by me.
I do feel like it gave us a good sense of them, though. I feel like ultimately you could kind of get their. I think that's why they probably put it in episode 1. It's not the very first task, right? The first task is do the riskiest thing involving this egg without breaking this egg, which I think 3 people get disqualified on that task. But I think it's fun. The way that's. Was it Steve and Nick drew a great picture, but then it was completely out of order, right? They got their order.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they still
won.
Or
they did it like sideways or something. Like they each did the picture sideways.
I thought that the last team task was really incredible. One of the last tasks of the show, which is this make a game show. I thought this was very funny. I very much, mostly for 10 out of 10 for Sophie, who just
yes, I couldn't stomach watching Nick and Steve's portion.
pretty gross.
I
It's
know
pretty
it
gross.
wasn't real. I know it wasn't real, but like it just like I literally could not have my eyes on the
If it's
screen.
not your
I
thing,
believed it coming.
that's totally fair. There's a line where it's a banana covered in chocolate and it says this must be Gwen Stefani. And they say no. How can you not make that Gwen Stefani's poop? That's so funny. Anyway, yeah, it's fine.
I
I just like that Steve wouldn't give up on the like.
that I did, like Nick was like, no, literally anything else, and then and Nick was just like, well, you're in for a surprise, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, the team tasks for I don't know. I felt like we didn't do as many team tasks this season, but I think that's probably not true.
There was the watermelon one that Steve and Nick totally mess
Very
up
funny that
immediately.
they just forgot the challenge in the room, couldn't go back in the room, couldn't step on the thing, and they did. They broke the water. Like everything was just a disaster, and that was very funny.
Are you going to be watching? And we'll probably get this. Probably would have got this later, but Taskmaster Australia has started, which has a very interesting story behind it. Are you familiar with like the season swapping of Australian
Yes,
Taskmaster?
yeah. So I feel like they filmed the second season so long ago because I feel like both you and I were very excited about Reese James. I think is his James. Is that his
I
last
don't know
name?
if I'm. I don't know if I don't
He
know
was
Reese
one of the
James.
he was one of the hosts of Drag Race Australia.
Okay.
So I was very excited for him. But then like that filmed so long ago, and I feel like we heard about it so long ago, and now they filmed the third season, but then now that like they released it
Yes.
basically right after.
Yeah. I think you're thinking of Reese Nicholson. Yeah. So they just finished filming. They filmed 2
Reese
seasons.
James.
I don't know.
Wait.
James, you're thinking of James and Will.
No, Reese James is
James is
a British comedian who
okay. There
I'm
we go.
surprised who hasn't been on Taskmaster yet.
All I say this is that season 2 has started. It has Josh Thomas, who I do love. Very fun. There's a couple on the season, so people who are in a relationship who are together. There's a very fun task where immediately someone knows that they've done it wrong and decide whether or not to keep going. Is a very funny moment. I've kind of enjoyed Australian Taskmaster season 2 so far. I will say I like some contestants much more than others, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway. I did think when the watermelon task where they just had messed up so quickly and then kept going was very fun. Yeah, there was the darts like Twister game that I thought was real bad. I thought it was.
See, I didn't mind it. I think it's fun, but I don't think it's something that works particularly well with 3 or 2 people. Like they're just the 3 people obviously have such an advantage in something like that.
There was a task this season that they often do these kind of like escape roomy type things. So this was like you have to like eat half the cake and put the other half in the post box and then put a flower on top. And you don't have to be holding like the task was like split in half, I think. So it was like you didn't have to be holding hands, so they thought they did have to hold hands. So there was that one, which I thought is fun. I think sometimes you just got to fill in the gaps, a little escape roomy style task sometimes is the way to go. And then there's do the most epic thing using green material and this green screen onesie, which I honestly can't remember.
I can't either. I can't at all.
I believe one team is looking like they're flying, but there's also the jumping task. So I could be confusing this with like the make it look like you're in the air task or something like that. The one where like John jumps over the fire.
Yeah.
Steve is like skydiving. Like that one felt very good, but that wasn't green screen. So
no, it was just epic photo, which I liked that one a lot. I thought that was fun. I feel like maybe there wasn't like a ton of tasks this season where I'm like, I will remember that one. Or maybe it's just that my brain isn't fully functioning, which is very likely.
Just for team tasks or teams or tasks
just
in general?
In general, I feel like there's not many where I'm like, oh yeah, like one that really sticks out to me was like pack a picnic basket for one of your other competitors, and then like they had to build the other person with it. Like I thought that was kind of fun. I don't know. Like I did like any of the ones that were in the field. They're like their travel.
Yeah,
day.
I was gonna ask about whether or not you liked the set piece. So they generally had no idea that the horses were gonna be there. They generally no idea until they showed up.
That would have terrified me.
It's pretty hilarious. Yeah.
Horses are too smart.
But what's funny is I think that set piece is so unmemorable, literally except for horses. Like when they do the task at the last episode where it's like, go hug your friend. I liked a lot of this stuff. I liked the like a continuity between things. I'm actually surprised that they didn't have the like make your friend be in the same episode. As the go hug your friend. Also Steve Pemberton like hollowing out the mannequin and then being the mannequin is generally one of the most inspiring and terrifying things I've ever. That's full on should be a horror movie.
And then and then like the mannequin coming like to life and hugging him, like that's just like really genius on the production part and dangerous because they could have killed that man. He is very old.
so old. So I love that, and then I love like in a totally separate episode, it's like go hug your friend, and then you can't figure out who your friend is. As opposed to like when they like just have Mr. Blobby be the person who's following.
Yeah, I forgot about that. And then they had the one where they had to rescue Henry from the river, which was just the girl Ella. And I love that Sophie just always thought it was going to be her friend, like her actual IRL friend. I don't remember what her name was.
And then she's like, I don't know why I just said Amy on the brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always thought it was going to be Amy. It's like, I just thought she'd be someone you might approach. It's so funny. Yeah. Sophie is hilarious, like genuinely so funny. I know a lot of people in the North America region were going to see Fern Brady live. If Sophie Willen ever comes to Canada for a tour, I will go see Sophie Willen. But
did you go see Fern Brady?
I did not. I kind of missed that she was coming, and then I just saw all my friends being like, "Going to see Fern Brady." And
I did that with James Acaster like a few months before, where it was just like everyone. I was like, "Okay, we're at James Acaster." I was like, "What? I didn't know he was here. I would have maybe gone to Toronto for that."
So sad. So sad. There was some fun. I liked create the new. There's a really good episode I think, which is I think it's episode 9, which is do something to celebrate Assistance Day. I thought was very fun, and then that has a task that I feel like I would just love to do, even though I would be really bad at it, which is the Peg Bin Dawn task with the socks, and mostly because I feel like they did so many things, and there's actually an example of this in the same task I was talking about with Australian Taskmaster. They do a really brilliant thing in the way that like people. So in Australian Taskmaster, this guy comes out and he looks at all the stuff and he goes, "I know exactly what the task is." He says what the task is. He opens the task and reads out the task. It's the exact same. But then there is an element that completely screws him over. It's very funny, and I thought with this, where like the chain on the bin and like just the way I think that people have gotten so good about like gaming the tasks to figure out how you can like muck about with them. And then this is like the next layer of that, where like the thing is just like there's extra steps to it that they've thought about knowing what people will do. I thought was pretty brilliant. But
I take everything so literally that I think I would have a hard time not just running between the 3 things and hoping for the best.
Well, you'd still do better than Steve Pemberton.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't take it that literally. Also, I thought it's funny how the beep test is like a global thing, because when Nick, or I think it was Nick Mohammed, was like, no, I think they call it the bleep test. We're
bleep test.
We're beep test girlies over here in Canada.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. I was like, yeah, this is like the beep test. And then they're like, yeah, it's like the bleep test. And I was like, oh my God.
Except Greg and Steve. And then they were like,
they're like, yeah, we've never heard of it.
Which I didn't really realize. I don't know how old the beep test is, but I should have looked it up. Can I tell you, there's a live task that I thought was going to be brilliant, and then in execution I thought was pretty boring, which is bounce the ball. And you had to do it that, and again, this is the type of thing that like I feel like this brings out all of my camp energy of like sometimes a task feels like Alex has to enter, like when you're at camp and there's like downtime and there's nothing to do, you always had to have like these like back pocket games to be like, because that's when kids like get bored, they start bullying each other, they like get homesick. So you always had to have, they're called back pocket games. And sometimes you would run out of your back pocket games. You're like, let's try to throw pine cones at the tree. And if you hit the tree, whatever, you just make them up. This one very much is like the first round, you have to bounce it once, then you have to bounce it twice, then 3 times. You get 1 freebie. But the way that like John immediately games the task and like hits it off the side,
and then everybody watches it and does it, and I felt the exact same way about that. The better version of this task was to like park a vehicle in the parking bay with your like the doll in it. Like I thought that was like a better version of what this task was trying to do. But they just like bought the bar and they spent so much money on it that they're like, well, we have to.
Yeah, when he said it was really expensive, was I very much appreciated that of him being like, "Wow, you're only using like 1 meter of this thing." Yeah, I like the park, the vehicle, and the band. Actually, thought the live tasks for the most part were very good. I think we only had one team task, which I appreciate. I hate when the live task. Maybe we had two. I hate when the live task is a team task. I liked bring your sausage to life, and every round was like a different word. I really like.
Yeah, that one they did something similar on. Was it Taskmaster
I
Australia or was it Taskmaster
New
New
Zealand, I
Zealand?
think, might have been that
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
yeah, those ones are funny. I liked the team one that the throw the rings on your teammate mate.
teammate
I
was
did
good.
like that one. It was cute.
That was I think we had 2 live because we had that one was a
Oh
team
yeah,
live test.
guess the movie that your teammate's saying.
Yeah.
I thought that was like fun enough.
Paint a
To,
face on your ball, you can't touch your ball. Like, I thought that they were pretty good. I thought they were pretty good live tests. There was basically categories, write down a letter of the alphabet, and then every time Greg asks you a question, you have to have an answer.
I like
That's supposed
that
to be a
one.
letter of the
That
alphabet.
was fun for me.
It's
Yeah,
super simple, but, like, it just sometimes, route
doesn't
A.
it doesn't have to be that complicated.
The last one was kinda not great. The scoring on the last one didn't really make it, which was crawl around this wall for 20 seconds and, only so the one thing I'll say about this season is that there's a couple times where I thought, like, I would see a task and I'm like, "I don't think that's the most fun task ever," but I do think to the show's credit, which I think it's the best thing it does, which is it casts incredibly well. And so I don't think there was ever a time mostly where I would be like, I would actually watch the results of what they were doing. Where they did it very similarly. I thought like this is my like thesis statement on Taskmaster is you need tasks where people can do things as differently as possible. And I think that this
Mhm.
cast was like very close to being almost perfect in that sense of like everyone would kind of go, even if John would just go route A, like almost no one else would go route A.
Mhm.
And so I feel like that's the testament of this. I thought that a couple times after episodes where it was like, yeah, they're also they're so distinct. And even if the tasks weren't like the most electrifying tasks, there was enough wiggle room within them that like the comedians could kind of shine, which is the juice of the show.
Yeah, there is good content. Any task that you really hated? I would say one of mine was the one where they're lying on the bed and they
Hate
had
it.
to like tie themselves to the bed and grab the ties, and there was like a secret tie that would eliminate you, but you didn't know what tie it was. And it's just like, okay, like I didn't gel with that one as much.
I joined I believe it's the Bosch podcast over on Silent Podcast to do a couple recaps this season. I was with you. I thought that like the red tie being the bad tie was so bad, but they were of the belief that like it was red and you could have known not to pull down the red tie. But I just felt like that's one where I didn't think people could really do it differently. But again, I give credit to like even what I think is probably undoubtedly the worst test of the season. We got Nick trying to leave the room was hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, like
Um,
flipped over on himself like a little turtle.
yeah. Um, Alex like coming over and like pulling ties that Joanne hadn't really pulled off. And that was fun. Joanna was also talking about like having been in these types of places before. I thought was fun. So like it was funny enough. I just thought like the design of the task was not good at all, really. And I think unless if nobody speaks like I think the thing too is like now you're just hoping that someone speaks Welsh to be able to read what they say on the tie. But if nobody speaks Welsh, then what's the point of having them in the clue being in Welsh? I
And
think
you
you have
can't
to
even
have
like
like
see it at that angle either. So I was just like,
yeah. I really didn't love that task. Um
Here's one that I totally forgot about, but wasn't that bad. Is stick the heaviest thing to the board using the three of the ingredients on the shelves. Once you've chosen your ingredients, you may not change your mind. Like it was fine, but like I don't always love the ones where many people get DQ'd. Like for me, that's an issue with the task design. I don't know, and I guess they're getting set up to be DQ'd here, but
um there's the one where it was like flick, flip, and flap a flip flop plan and flapjack that I thought was like that's like the writing is clever, but like is it a full task? I don't know, probably not. Uh,
I
you
did
know,
love create the biggest and best dot to dot picture.
I love that one.
Uh, that was really fun. Those are the fun, like old school tasks, I feel like.
Um, I thought that until we saw John Robbins reveal that make the back of your head look like the front of your head was a complete failure. It's like nobody's back up there. Like Joanne's was terrible. Joanne's was like a mannequin face on the back, and then just her, and then she was having a conversation on the phone. I thought they were all terrible. And then John suddenly like has full on Freddie Mercury on the back of his head.
I
And
was
looked
like
pretty
deeply
good, but like
impressed by that. Also, like a little
yeah,
grossed out because his head was like kind of like too
I
damp.
know,
Like it
I know.
I didn't I appreciate it, but I was like, "Ugh, I don't want to touch that."
I didn't think find in the last episode, the like pegging the task with the arrow. I didn't think that was super great. Like I
It
felt
was
like
an ugly arrow.
it's such an ugly arrow. And then yeah, Nick being very proud of himself, and then like, I'm being disqualified. I guess I mean, this is what I'm saying. Even in Taskmaster, I can like find the silver lining, and like
Yeah,
a
you're just like,
task I
okay,
thought
that
was
was
like
kind of
yeah,
funny.
but Nick leaves the thing on the ground. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have many that I was like that was so bad, but
No, that's fair. I think one that people are going to talk about down the line is the perform a recognizable piece of classical music without using any musical instrument. You may not hum, sing, whistle, or that sort of thing. You know, 4 out of the 5 people made their own sort of instrument. I thought, was it John who made the guitar, like the harp?
yeah,
I
yeah,
thought that was brilliant. I thought Nick's was really brilliant. Um, Joanne just like completely misunderstanding the task and doing
that was
dance like
very
it was
funny.
brilliant. And I loved how many times we got to the studio and whoever it was who read the task wrong was like, it didn't occur to me until I just saw that.
Yeah, there's a couple moments of that where they're like, I only now understand the task. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Joanne dancing is very funny. The problem is that I don't know the names of enough classical music songs. I think like I would just do it and then have to be like, and they'd be like, is it this? And I'd be like, yep. I guess that's the name of it.
I would do like a Taylor Swift song and be like, well, it's a future classic.
Wow,
Oh.
that's good. It's a spin. That's not
Yeah,
rude, Haley. That's good.
I'm not a big classical music person. I'm sorry. I appreciate it. It doesn't go
The
into my
most I
little
feel like
noggin.
the one I can do is the one that was in the milk commercials as a kid. What's that one? Doesn't matter.
I
See?
don't know.
Don't even know.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. All right. Well, I mean, yeah, there is Australian Taskmaster happening right now. The rumor is why they switched the seasons is just because I believe someone who's in the season that was filmed second is on The Amazing Race, I believe. So the Amazing Races are at the same time, or it might be the opposite where he's on both shows, but they basically didn't want to conflict promo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's happening. But then we also got very quickly, I thought at the end of the season ramped up so quickly, but our series, 18 cast, Haley.
And I saw it. I saw it. You sent it to me this week, and I was like so surprised. I was like, why are they releasing this before the finale? And you were like, no, the finale happened. And I was like,
no, to be fair, it was that night. So we were both right. It not happened yet, but it was going to happen. Yeah. So Andy Zaltzman, Babatunde Lachey, Emma City, Jack D, and Rosie Jones. I know 3 out of 5, which I feel like is pretty good for me. I'm not familiar with Babatunde, who I believe you are a big fan of.
I love Babatunde.
And I don't know Emma City, but
I don't know Andy Zaltzman.
Andy Zaltzman is a longtime co-contributor of John Oliver. So they used to have a podcast together. When John Oliver came to America, believe they continue doing their podcast together. I don't believe they're doing it anymore, but he is a John Oliver type, but also like if you see his hair is like he's like got very much like Sideshow Bob.
Yeah, I get that vibe.
Yeah, but he should be very funny. I think the thing I think is most interesting about this season, and I almost now think that there was a little bit of a dry run with the New Year's Treat episode with the individual who won the last New Year's Treat. I'm going to try to pull up, but he is a little person, and I feel like so interesting that they have Rosie Jones on this season, who is living with a disability, and so I think that's what I love is that I'm glad the show is doing it because I think it'll be very interesting to see how tasks are designed to make sure that they're accessible for Rosie while also being work for the other like I don't think they'll like say this task is different. I think they'll design the task just to be the same for everybody, but that Rosie
Yeah.
can complete the task, which I think is
Yeah.
very fun. I think it's super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. Rosie Jones, I think, is very funny. One of my favorite British panel show comedy moments came from Rosie Jones, and that was on an episode of the now defunct Question Team series that Richard Iwata hosted. If you can find those episodes, find the one with Rosie Jones and oh my god, Maisie Adams, and I can't remember who the third was on that, but you have to find it. It's incredibly funny.
Okay.
Babatunde, listen to his episode of Off Menu. It's so
Okay.
funny.
Okay.
He was really good on House of Games. Emma City, she was in Starstruck, which is the my god, it's getting late. Rose Matafeo show.
Okay. All right.
You can find it on Crave in Canada. It's really cute if you love a rom-com, which I do. She's in that. She's married. Yeah, I think she was also in Stathlet's Flats too, as like
She
a little
was.
pop in, and Ghosts, which I love Ghosts.
She was in Ghosts. Yeah.
So I'm excited to see her. I'm looking forward to that. And then Jack D is interesting. I feel like I'm surprised he would do it. Honestly, like I feel like he's that old grizzled guy who's like, maybe would take like a Julian approach to like hating being there, but I could also see him having a good time. I'm not sure where. I'm not sure about this one. Not that I'm not sure he's not good casting. I'm not sure what his attitude's going to be like.
I think he's completely of an archetype that like we kind of like have gotten less regularly recently. I mean, actually, I think the biggest comparison is oh gosh, what's his name? Who was on with I believe in the Mae Martin season. He's an old grumpy Frankie Boyle. Yeah, I feel like that's the best comp probably for Jack D. We're like a little serious, maybe with like a hint of like Hugh Dennis a little bit in there, a little bit like kind of like the older statesman comedian who I think will be more annoyed at Alex and the task. But every once in a while, like kind of hit it out the I mean, he's a long time. He's been on the like British comedy scene for so long. But he's kind of one of those people who like I would have like after a certain number of while, you're like, yeah, I don't think Jack D will be on the show, but here he is, series 7 or 18.
Yeah, can you believe we're at series 18?
I know. The reality of getting to champion of champions is real. It's not that. It won't be that long. I know.
It's not that long. It's not that far away. Like it makes
7
me feel
seasons.
old. I'm not gonna lie.
I love it. But no, I'm pretty excited for this cast. I think it's like it's an interesting eclectic group. I feel like this cast reminds me more so of last season's cast, where when you look like there's a moment too, I think it is season 4. It's the first episode. It's the live task. And Greg goes, what an ensemble of humans we found ourselves with. It's because it's like, it's that series 4 cast, right? And I feel like every once in a while you just get like the weirdest people put together in a cast. And this one feels very much like that. We're very much so like last season where it was like Julian and Sam and
that one was almost too like last season was almost a little too weird for me, where hopefully like I don't know, there's gonna be some balance here. Who do you think the teams are gonna be? Because I do think it'll be olds versus youngs.
But they do that so often.
I know, which is why I think they're gonna do it again.
They probably will do that again. I could see Rosie, Emma, and Babatunde, and then Andy and Jack. Although Andy and Jack maybe are too, I don't know. We'll see.
They could be like the Grumpy Muppets. That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. Well, series 18. This just said coming soon. Don't necessarily have a.
I assume fall. I feel like that's been the regular rotation.
Yeah. When did series 16 air? September to November. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's fully Survivor. Coming soon though. That's so long.
Fall TV season is always nuts.
Yeah, sure. Although less so now because like well, I guess you watch like stuff that's like sometimes on network TV. I feel like now that streamers are a big thing, like I feel like it doesn't happen.
No,
but, like,
well, and last fall they did Last fall they did Bachelor in Paradise and Golden Bachelor running at the same time, which was tough for me personally and probably nobody else.
Yeah. I hear they're not together anymore. The Golden Bachelor. I mean, that was a
No,
whole
they got a
spicy
divorce.
podcast.
They got married and they got divorced 3 months
Classic.
later.
Classic.
Tough.
All
I
right.
also want to present to you.
Yes.
Who do you want to see on the next New Year's treat? Now, those are usually the people who
Oh,
are only here for one episode. It's like usually a little bit more star power. Like who are you looking for?
can I throw a? Which is that? Well, I'll answer the question legitimately, but I don't want. I want a different New Year's treat, which is I want the opposite of Champion of Champions. I want 5 bad people coming back for redemption and for at least one of them to do poorly again. I want Nish Kumar and like who else? Who are some of our worst contestants ever? That's what I want for New Year's Street. But an actual New Year's Street again, I feel like I'm not up
That's
enough
fun.
in like what's happening in British comedy again, or in like British culture in general to then be like, okay, I will give you one really good answer, which is I want the co-host of The Rest is Entertainment because I don't think she'd probably ever do an actual
Oh, that's
series.
cool.
And
That's a
then
cool one. Yeah.
yeah, because then they could gab about it. So I would like Marina Hyde to be. She's great. She'd be a great fit for that because she's like a journalist and she's a writer. She writes about celebrity and sport, current affairs. She'd be fantastic. So Marina
I think
Hyde,
we're
and then they have the Richard and Marina connection.
I think we're definitely going to get an Olympian because the
Oh yeah,
Olympics are
because
this
the
summer.
Olympics.
I really want to see Hannah Waddington. She's somebody who I really feel like would do the one-off, but it would be hard to get her for a full season because her career is just like incredible right now. And I really enjoy her. I find her incredibly charming.
If we could get basically the whole all the British people on Ted Lasso at some point to just be fully on the show. Like Brett Goldstein needs to be on Taskmaster at some point, right? He's probably now too big, but that would be great.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Do you have anything else about this season of Taskmaster or anything coming up?
Not really anything more Taskmaster related. I feel like we did a thorough job. I would give us 5 points.
I know you find ranking arbitrary and
I do
reductive,
find
as
it
your sister
arbitrary
says.
and reductive.
Um,
Yeah.
where do you feel like this falls in your season rankings?
I definitely think it's like, so I'm actually going to be, I'm doing this as I'm rewatching the seasons. I'm actually like I'm ranking and rating everything as I'm going along. One thing I wanted to do, and I stopped very quickly, was I wanted to like redo where I disagree with Greg's point systems and see if it changed any of the outcomes of the season. But then I got too lazy as I was watching the episodes. I think it's probably like halfway somewhere. Like it's not bad, and it's probably like the top of the bottom. I think if that makes sense.
Like I'm gonna divide it in like quadrants, and I feel like it's near the top of the 3rd quadrant, but like it's not in the first 2 quadrants. I really enjoyed it, but
what's worse than this one is what I guess I would.
Easily for me, season 3, season 6. I don't always find season 8 particularly charming, and that's because I'm a Lou Saunders hater and I can't help myself. I'm so sorry, Lou Saunders. Let me see. Let me see a list.
I know there's this great image on did I actually there used to be this great image of like all the casts that you could find, but then it like stops after season 9, so it's not super helpful.
Yeah. I like this season better than I liked last season.
I would agree that season
know.
3 I think is absolutely the worst season. I would agree that 6 is probably worse than this one. I don't think 8 is super great. I think as well. I like 9, 10. That's Richard Herring, and like I love Daisy, and I like Catherine Parkinson.
That
Yeah.
that one's hard because it was like the first COVID season, so they really had to like work with it. You know, that wasn't really their fault.
Maybe it's better than 13, which is like Artle, Bridget. Although that Judy and Sophie and Chris Ramsey saying "no way," which I haven't said on the
No,
podcast yet. So I should say
I'm
it.
too charmed by most people in that.
Season 14 is Dara and Fern and John and Manuel and Sarah. So I like that
Yeah.
better. 16 is May and Jenny and Ivo. So I like that better. I think I like 16 better, but it's honestly the Sam Campbell bump is like enormous for me. Like literally, I think like
Yeah.
his question in episode 1, like it just immediately makes the whole season tough. It's like again, I don't think it's like the
Yeah,
best season ever.
I
I think
really think
Sam Campbell is so
I
good.
really think I'm the only one who's like a hater of that season.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
But
It's a little
mm,
nicey too. There's like the Sue and Susan connection where they're like just like I don't know, which is interesting because I also don't like the opposite of that, which is like the like Ed
too
Rose like
mean.
feud. Like it's too mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I think one of the problems I'm having with Australian Taskmaster so far is there are moments where I genuinely think it might be too mean for me. And that's my hot take about that. I don't know that Greg is like always my favorite. So anyway, he's perfect for the show, but also sometimes like in the early seasons, like boy, he's a real big meanie.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, that's it. Grace, where can people find you on the internet if you want to be found on the internet?
I'm on social media at Hi from Grace. It's currently Pride Month, so we're doing the Pride is Spoken. It's back for our season 3. We interviewed Jam, and we have probably, for my money, and it's not who people I think it will. I think people will be totally surprised by who is going to be on, but I think it's probably one of the most important interviews we've done in the 3 seasons of the show. So that's a little plug for the next episode. And yeah, there should be more content coming for me soon over on RHAP. And then I do patron game night each week with Derek. We normally are live on Twitch on Thursday evenings, although sometimes the date changes. You can look out on your Patreon for signups for that. We've done Blood on the Clock Tower. I will be doing Taskmaster at some point, Haley, and I will lure you in to be.
I had
Yes.
so much fun last time.
Yeah, it was very fun.
I think
Remember
I
when
put
we
on
made
my wedding dress for it.
Yeah, Rob had to rate 5 different wedding dresses. I believe it was 4 in a bridesmaid dress. I
No,
think
it was like 2 wedding dresses and like 3 bridesmaids
bridesmaid
dresses.
dresses, and we just had to be like, okay, well, rank them in order of what you think is. I think it was like the most beautiful thing, or like the most sentimental thing, or something
Yeah, or
like
like the
that
most beautiful item of clothing, and
in your home. Yeah, and then
yeah,
Rob
Rob
had to
was
be
just like,
ranking
"No,
wedding
I'm
dresses.
not
Yeah,
doing this."
it's like I'll put the wedding dresses above the bridesmaid dresses, but that's the most I'll do.
Oh, that's so funny.
So yeah,
And that
that
was
was very
good.
fun. So we'll be doing that. So look out for signups for that, and you can come watch us do patron game night. It's very fun. Yeah. What about you, Haley?
Gosh, I'm available, I guess. I am doing the coverage of the Top Chef season over on the reality TV wrap-ups. Of course, if you somehow missed the Bachelor coverage and want to go back to it, that's interesting. You can. It's all there on the wrap-ups as well. I literally, before this podcast, I joined the Lonely Boys podcast to talk about an episode of Gossip Girl. I only watch Gossip Girl when they ask me to be on their podcast. And then a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of weeks coming up, I will be on the Ready to Be Romance podcast talking about Bridgerton, book 4, but season 3 of the TV show, which I have enjoyed so much. And then you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @strong_. And you can check out everything I am reading over on my Bookstagram account at the Strong Library. I somehow, and I don't know how I did it, finished my 50th book this week or last week.
Wow, that's pretty good. I think I finished my 11th book today, so kudos to you for 50.
I genuinely don't know how I did it. I set my reading goal for 65. Last year, I think I read 51 books throughout the entire year, and I'm
Did I
already
see
at
you're
that.
reading through A Court of Silver Flames? I
Yeah,
haven't read any of these books, but I
I
feel like they're
finished
hot.
that. I okay. I almost borderline despised the first one, but everyone said you gotta read the second one. I liked the second one. I barely tolerated the third and fourth one. Loved Silver Flames.
Okay, fun.
Yeah.
That's the last one, though, isn't it? Isn't it the 5th one?
They're gonna continue that series.
Well, I guess I mean last one that's available.
Last one that's available, and then I think all of the other like Sarah J. Maas like Bookstaverses combine or like in the same. I don't know. I don't know if I'm willing to jump into those. I'm not always like a super fantasy reader. I prefer like simple kissing in the real world, but yeah, so I'm busy over there. And thank you for joining us. This was so fun, per usual. And we'll see you next time.